Hey guys, Croup Man here. It looks like we are live. This will be a more eventful live stream than earlier today, my 20-minute Nvidia live stream where I was way too tired to live stream. I'm going to go for 45 minutes to an hour, no longer than that. And this will be a live stream that you'll be able to rewatch because we're going to talk about all things Blackwell that was announced. First, the biggest news is that they announced not one, not two, but four models: the 5090 at $2,000, the 5080 at $1,000, the 5070 Ti at $750, and the 5070 at $550. Now, I think this is probably the most divisive, if you ask me, right? The most divisive thing that I've seen, and that was that the Jensen claimed the 5070 would be 4090 level performance. Now, I don't really know how I feel like that about that. If we're being completely honest, I feel like he's using some frame gen trickery here. If we're being honest, like, I saw some screen grabs. Let me see if I can find them. I saw some stuff where they were basically comparing. Digital Foundry had some good screen grabs. Let me see if I can find them. But they were comparing the specs. Let me see if I can find them. If anybody has the, if anyone has the specs, link it to me. I'd appreciate it. I don't remember seeing it because I was at the conference, obviously. But essentially, I think he's comparing FSR 4 to FSR 3, where he's getting the 5070 equals 4090 performance, which, you know, as being a fan of native performance, I'm kind of pretty bummed that that was what they said. But at the same point, that single slide is going to haunt AMD for a long time. You know, there was a lot of confusion post AMD launch, like what happened, where were your GPUs announced, what did you do? And this is the answer. I mean, that's a stream for another day, but woo, this is gonna hurt in AMD. So anyway, we've got a lot to unpack. You know, we've got the 5090, the 5080, the 5070 Ti, and the 5070. And I just want to say hi to everybody who joined the stream. Death Valley Mining says, whole family sick, missed the entire event. That's a bummer, man. I was actually going to hit you up and maybe grab a beer or something. Hey, everybody else who joined the chat and everybody watching. So, you know, Jensen talked about Blackwell really fast and kind of just moved on with it. But there is a ton to unpack. Like, first, the price. I think the 50. Let me see if I can pull up the specs before we go in. I think I can get the specs right here. Digital Foundry had some of the specs. Let me get them. And I appreciate everybody watching. This is going to be a little bit of a rough-ish stream as I'm just streaming from my laptop in my hotel room. Feel free to interact if you have any questions you want to ask. Let me know. Excuse me. First thing I want to go over is the 5080. Yes, it only has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and yes, you should be thankful for it because then you're going to be able to buy one. I think at $1,000, that means AIB pricing will be somewhere between $1,200 to $1,400. If this thing can match or beat a 4090's performance, I think that will be incredible. What I'm trying to say is I know people aren't excited about the specs, but I think GDDR7 will help the 5080. I really believe that we could see a 15 to 20% performance boost from the 5080 over the 4090 in native performance, which would be a huge deal. And if you could basically get a little bit of a better, like a 4090 Ti or a 4090 Super for like $1,400, because, you know, founders are going to be hard to get, or even like say $1,200, that would be a massive win for Nvidia. And I mean, that would give everybody a Halo. That would be an affordable Halo series GPU. So I think that's massive, really, really massive. And I think in this stream we're going to focus more on the gaming performance, but we will talk a little bit about mining too. I know I'm in that awkward state where like I'm doing gaming and mining on the same channel, but this is definitely, at least tonight, is definitely going to be more of like a gaming focus, but I will talk mining. The 5090 is going to be a monster. The performance uplift over the 4090, I don't know. I mean, it all depends on what you think the GDDR7 memory is going to do. 32 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory is insanity. It's massive and it's great, and you're never going to see this thing on the shelves. At $2,000, you're never going to see it. Just pretend. Don't even attempt to get a Founders. Like I know with me, I will be trying to get one of the cheaper model AIBs, like the Gigabyte Eagle or the MSI Gaming X Trio. You know, the lower end models. But expect to pay $2,300 to $2,500 if you're lucky to snag one of these. I really think that it's going to be the best binned AI, the best value AI GPU out there, and you're never going to see it, which is a bummer, but you have the 5080, which is a good performance. And I really think Nvidia did a good job using the VRAM to segment their market. Excuse me. The 5070 Ti, I don't know. I'm like torn on it. I think its price is interesting. I mean, I'm sure, I have no doubt that it's going to beat a 4080 and a 4080 Super. So it's $750. That's not bad, especially considering since it's a new GPU. And from someone who's been gaming on his 4080 a lot, I mean, I think it's not a bad thing. Like, if you skip the 40 series and you want to upgrade from, say, like a 3090 to a 40 or a 5070 Ti, I think that would be a pretty nice upgrade. I really do. And then the 5070, I don't know what to think, guys. I'm really disappointed. Offshore Miner says, good afternoon, sir. Tuning in a few minutes late. Sick, you were at the keynote. Thanks, I appreciate it. And I know this is late. I know this is 10 o'clock Western time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So anybody who's watching, I really, really appreciate you joining. The 5070 at $550. AMD is in a lot of trouble. I think the 5070, if it can get to like 4070 Ti Super performance, I think that's really solid. At $550, woo. I mean, I honestly, I think this puts everybody on notice. I think that I don't think it's going to necessarily affect the B580, because I think the B580 is still half the price, and you're still gonna get. I'm trying to use the right words, and like I said, I'm getting a little tired. So if I take a second to figure out my words, I apologize. You're gonna get good performance on the 5070, but it really just depends on what you have. Like if you have, if you were gonna upgrade this generation, you held out. The 5070 is probably a good upgrade, especially if you don't want to buy used, right? Like, Nvidia just put the used market, flip the used market on its head. 30 series prices are going to crash, and I think 40 series prices are going to go down quite a bit, right? I really believe that's the case. But if you are like wanting to buy a new GPU, right, and that's the reason the Arc B580 was so great, because it was a budget GPU, well, you basically have at the 5070, you have like this generation's 3080 at $700, basically, I think. Thank you. PC Games and Hardware says, good coverage, Crude. I really appreciate it. Offshore Miner says, it's going to be a solid market shakeup, but we still need to have stock. So look, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think you're going to have issues with the 5070 and the 5070 Ti. I don't think you're going to have issues on stock on those. The 5080, I think people are going to try to scalp it, but I really believe that there's not much of a ceiling for it, right? Because if you're going to buy a 5080, right? Like, for example, you're not going to buy a 5080 if you already own a 4090, I think, right? Because I think you're going for the 5090 or bust. So, like, if you own a 4080, would you buy a 5080? So, like, if the 5080 is a 20% performance jump, then maybe you're looking at, like, a 30% performance jump. Would you do that? I mean, the used market value of, like, a 4080 right now, I would say is probably, like, $700-800. So say you're going to pay $1,250 for the average AIB. Would you pay $500 for a 30% upgrade? I kind of think I would. Honestly, I kind of think I would. PC Games and Hardware asks, how are they going to get the latency right with so many generated frames? All right, so I'm going to be talking mostly in terms of this, what I'm talking now. I'm going to go off native performance. I understand that, I understand at this point I might have to start looking at FSR, and I'm not FSR, like DLSS2 and DLSS4 and FrameGen 2. I'm going to have to start looking at those, especially with something like the 5090 or the 5070, because it's going to be very impressive. But honestly, I want to talk about native frames right now, just to give you guys a more realistic expectation of where you can see the performance. PC Games and Hardware, thank you very much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Jeff says, this is another paper launch like the 30 series to hold people off from buying AMD. Look, I don't think this is going to be a paper launch, guys. I really, truly believe the 5070 and the 5070 Ti will be easy to get. I believe that Nvidia has been making these for quite a bit, and I said that there was no 40 series shortage. Unfortunately, I was wrong. And go Birds, Jeff also said. Because I was at Micro Center, my local Micro Center back home before I left, because I had to get a bunch of micro SD cards. And I talked to one of the employees who I've developed a rapport with over the past few months, and he wants to remain anonymous, which is totally understandable. And he basically said that they're not getting stocks of anything. He said they had 4070s, 3060 Ti's, and that's basically all they had. 4070s and 3060s. He said the high-end 40 series stock is gone. So that makes me think that Nvidia has really been ramping up production of the 5070 and the 5070 Ti. Offshore Miner says, I think AMD has already admitted they were blowing down from trying to compete on the GPU side. I don't think that's the case. I think AMD had a pretty solid plan based on the press briefing I saw. And then when they didn't announce it, it was really weird. And then we saw this slide, right? We saw this. And this is the slide that is going to get everybody talking, okay? Whether you agree with this, whether you think it's jabroni trickery that Jensen's doing, people are talking about this slide. When I saw this slide, I dropped the F-bomb. I basically was like, oh, F. Now, it was like 2 minutes, it was like 20 seconds of excitement, followed by reality setting in, where I realized that, there's some kind of frame generation trickery going on, because I've seen leaks that have been proven to be pretty accurate, and the 4070 essentially has like a smaller core count than the 5070 essentially has like a smaller core count than the 4070, and they were basically relying on GDDR7 to give it its performance uplift as far as native resolution goes. I don't have those slides in front of me. I'm honestly too tired to dig them up. And if someone wants to link me to any of those, I'll put them up on the stream, and I would appreciate it. But like CRF just said, fake frames. It's all fake frames. But still, we're talking about it. And because we're talking about it, and because it's $549, AMD didn't announce their cards today. I think AMD is going to go back and regroup, and I think that they're going to have to market their GPUs accordingly. Let me pull up the thing that I can share now. Give me a second. I'll go on my desktop and get it. Because if you look at this quickly, right, you're going to have, so if you think that the 9070 XT is going to compete with the 4070 or the 5070, right? And I would honestly think that the 5070 is somewhere between the 4070 Ti and the 4070 Ti Super, then you're automatically going to have to price the 5070 at like $450. If you don't price it at $450, nobody's going to buy it. And I think you need to price it at $400 to be really aggressive. And if you're going to price your flagship model for RDNA 4 at $400, which I think would be a win, what are you going to do for the rest of them? I think Jensen saw those AMD leaks because we got the press kit. We got the press kit from AMD. I want to say last week sometime. We were embargoed, obviously, so we couldn't talk about it. And Jensen was just like, hold my beer. Let's just do it. Let's do it. And then he went with this slide. Offshore Miner says, that's definitely not going to be possible for the average person. I don't see there being realistic stock numbers for a bit. Look, like I said, I really truly believe that there won't be a shortage of the 5070. I don't believe there's going to be a shortage of the 5070 or the 5070 Ti. The 3080 is a whole nother subject, right? I think that maybe the 3080, the 5080, I think there could be a shortage. But it just depends on if there's a high ceiling for scalpers, right? Like, say the AIBs don't aggressively price these things, and you're looking at maybe like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. I think if $1,300 or $1,400 for like the high, like let's just say a Strix card costs $1,400, I think people would buy it, right? Hey, what's up, Jersey Jedi? Yeah, it's a late night stream for you guys, not for me, because I'm on West Coast time. I was gonna grab dinner and I just said nope. We're just gonna go live stream. So I mean, obviously you'll see the Founders Edition scalped, right? Like any $1,000 card will be scalped because you'll easily be able to make some kind of margin up, which is unfortunate, but you will see one of those scalped. I think, but I really don't think there's that much leeway in terms of what you can get for the 5080, because while the 4090 will be non-existent and you won't see a 5090, that'll be a scalper's wet dream. It'll be chaos, really. Excuse me. I don't think. Oh, sorry. Excuse me, guys. I don't think that maybe this is copium, maybe this is hopium, but I don't think that the 5080 will have as much of a scalping ceiling. Like, I think the scalping ceiling will be low on it. Yeah. So IOTAP says AMD said they were just going to capture the mid range. I don't know, man. I don't want to crap on AMD, right? I really don't. But I have a meeting scheduled with AMD on Wednesday. I'm very curious to see what they have to say. CRF says power consumption is way higher. So I don't really think it's that much higher. My 4090 has been cranking out 600 watts already. I would actually say that it's lower, but maybe the 575 watt, maybe that's just the stock. So maybe you'll see like 650 to 700 watt which would be crazy. But as long as you give me more frames, I really don't care. Like, from a personal standpoint, right? I'm going to buy a 5090. There's an Asus power supply that I'm excited to try, the new Thor, which supposedly can improve your performance by like 3 to 5%. I'm going to buy that. I don't care how much power these things suck. I want the most frames. But yeah, I mean, there's more power. I think the interesting thing is the 250 watt 5070 is nice. And then I think the 360 watt 3080 is fine too. Like, I really don't think the power demands are that bad, because you got to remember the 5080 is at least a 4090, right? So we're working under the assumption that a 5080 is at worst a 4090, at best like a 4090 Ti, right? That's the assumption we're working off of. Gordon Wong said, should I buy a 170HX or a 5070? All right, so quick mining segue, and then I'm going to go right back to gaming. That was something I was thinking about when I was waiting for my Uber to get back to the hotel. And I think, so here's the thing, right? I would look at it as maybe you're getting maybe you're getting like a 4070 Ti Super in terms of mining performance. So basically like a 4080. And if you're getting like X amount of percent with GDDR7 memory, on memory algorithms, there might be a compelling argument for the RTX 5070, which is very interesting. And I'm going to get one of at least every one of these for launch. But I was thinking about that, and you might have a very compelling argument for the 5070 in terms of mining. Going back to the chat, PC Games and Hardware says, dude, my 7900 XTX, OC drinks the juice 600 plus. Look, if you are an AMD guy or if you've played around with AMD, you can put Team Red, you can put more power tools to unlock the performance. I had a 6900 XT drinking like 400 watts. So you can crank these GPUs if you want, honestly. IOTAP also says the bandwidth of the 170HX is still there with the 5090. I did a video on that. I'll put a link here if you want to watch it. Let me go get that for you guys real quick. You can see it. It's funny. I went off my assumption on the price was that we would see a $2,000 5090, and I was right. I mean, it was just the assumption for the video, but I was right, which was kind of neat. I was always kind of gun shy about talking about prices. But yeah, there's a lot of compelling arguments on the 5070, and there's two parts of me, right? Part of me is part of this is painful for me because I am not a fan of DLSS 4, right? I'm just not. But the other part of me you have to recognize how good this could be. And it is cool that the 40 series will get the next generation frame gen. I'll be excited to test that because sometimes frame generation is like an upscale that I can kind of get behind. And it's kind of wild that you're going to get ray reconstruction on the 20 and 30 series. I don't know what you're going to do with ray reconstruction, but I've got a 2080 Ti that I'm really curious to see what ray reconstruction will do with it. This is kind of wild. Like if you look at this screen grab right here, where they're basically comparing, what is this? So this is on Dark Tide. Yeah, it's on Dark Tide, and FrameGen says 30% less VRAM, which is good for all those people who whine about VRAM. I am not one of them, which is nice, but let's see. Current 4K, DLSS, FrameGen, new frames are new frames, and less VRAM is good. So it's funny, right? This FrameGen, it is not going to be on the 50 or on the 30 series, I don't think, which is a bummer, because that FrameGen would probably help for everybody who owns like a 3070 with those 8 gigs of VRAM. But I guess the FrameGen might help out with the 4060 Ti, barely. I don't know, maybe not, but 4060 Ti sucks. So, okay, so here we go. This is what I wanted to see. All right, so 4K 120 hertz gaming with the 5090 and DLSS 4. All right, so the gray one, all right, so this says, all right, I can't see chat, by the way, because I have to have my full window up to see this. NK says, bro, you seem tired. You're making mistakes with the name of the 3080, 4090, and 5090. Yeah, I know, but I'm really enjoying talking, and I feel like I'm on a roll. And yeah, mistakes will be made, but that's okay. If people don't want to watch, you don't have to. I appreciate everybody hanging out. But looking at these screen grabs with DLSS off, DLSS 3, and DLSS 4, some of this stuff is really impressive, actually. I want to talk about Alan Wake 2. If this is a 5090 and we can get like 40 to 45 FPS on Alan Wake 2 on the 5090 with FrameGen on, that would be very, very impressive. It's path tracing. Wow. Okay. So 40 FPS-ish, it looks like, with Alan Wake 2 on path tracing. The 4090 can't do that. So that's pretty cool. Cyberpunk 2077 with path tracing. If you're telling me we're getting close to 50 FPS, that's not bad considering that Cyberpunk 2077 is unplayable with path tracing in 4K native. So I'm excited, guys. I know maybe some of you guys aren't, but I am. And if you want to use DLSS 2 and DLSS 3 and DLSS 4, it's pretty wild. I mean, I'll play with it, but you know me, I'm 4K native at heart. I just noticed these benchmarks, so excuse me if I kind of nerd out on these. Pretty exciting. Let's see, catching up on chat. They're just talking about the memory bus. 1 128-bit memory bus is only 500 megs bandwidth on GDDR7. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting for the 5090 in terms of that. I really do. But I'm kind of shocked at these numbers. If these 5090 benchmarks are true, that means that if you turn path tracing off and you do ray trace, psycho, everything, right? You might be looking at 70-ish FPS in Cyberpunk 2020 or 2077 on a 5090. And I gamed on the 4090 quite a bit on Cyberpunk. So if you're giving me path tracing and making it playable in 4K, I'm excited to give you my money, Nvidia. I really, really am excited to give you my money. Now, obviously, let me see. So it says on here, path tracing where applicable, or RTX Max, Ryzen 7 9800X3D, Asus X870, GDDR, 64 gigs of GDDR5. Okay, so that's cool, because that's basically what my system's running, which means I can expect similar performance to this. Let's see. Fake frames introduce a ton of latency and input lag. Yeah, I know. And I'm not the biggest fan of the fake frames, especially when you pay $2,000, right? I'm not paying $2,000 to run fake frames. Now, I will say that there are some things on Cyberpunk, like games that optimize it properly, where you can use frame gen, like on Cyberpunk, when it doesn't increase or when it runs off native frames. That is cool, but that's few and far between. So I definitely like that. CFR says raster performance is only 25% uplift. Yeah. I think that, I don't know. As far as the performance from the 4090 to the 5090, based on what we're seeing, based on Nvidia provided benchmarks, when I'm actually impressed that they're showing us 4K native. I honestly didn't think they would do that. It seems like you're going to get maybe between 25 and 35% uplift. Is that worth it? That's up to you. I think it's worth it. And I think to have path tracing playable, I think that's incredible. Look, I think it's very difficult. Like let me rephrase that. I think a lot of people don't understand how demanding these games are, right? Like if you look at Cyberpunk, if you look at Indiana Jones, they render the ray tracing in real time, and the 4090 is brought to its knees by Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So if you're only going to get like a 30 to 35% improvement, that's a big deal, right? It's not like you're talking a 30 or like let's say the 4070 and the 5070, right? I think you're realistically only going to get like a 20 to 25% improvement. That's kind of a bummer, okay? Like I don't think that's worth it. But when you're on the high end of cutting edge and you're talking, the difference of 30% takes path tracing from an unplayable tech demo to being able to go to Night City with path tracing, or being able to play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle with path tracing, let alone Alan Wake, I think that's a huge deal. Internet of Games says something that I really like. He says, I think people need to get used to the new way of computing graphics. I do as well. I think that it's going to be very, very difficult to get these uplifts. Like, maybe you'll get like a 60% uplift one gen, but how are you going to improve that the next gen? Like, these things are massive. Like, let's go back to this, right? You're looking at 575 watt TDP base for a 5090. So what's a 6090 going to be? 800? Are you, like, miners would get this, right? But is your PC going to be like 1200 watts at the end of the day? Or are you going to need like a 1600 watt power supply just to be safe? You're going to get to the point where you're going to start blowing fuses with your PC. And you're going to be doing this all to get the latest and greatest performance on AAA games. Now, I think it also depends on if you're going to get many of these AAA games, which I hope we do, because Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Cyberpunk 2077, Alan Wake, and Black Myth Wukong are like that. That's what gets me going on PC gaming anymore. Playing those in 4K, 120 hertz. I want to upgrade my monitor, but now I'm like, I don't even know if I need to because none of these games are going to get close to it. And, maybe we can finally say, guys, that the 5090, based on these benchmarks, maybe the 5090 is going to be, maybe 4K 60 hertz native is realistic in a lot of games anymore with Ray Tracing Max, which is a big deal. And, I think it only took us 3 generations, but I think we're actually here in real 4K native gaming. It's just really, really exciting to think about, guys. Really, really exciting. So let's see. I've been going for. I'm trying to think I'm going for about 30 minutes. I'm going to do about 15 more minutes. I think 45 minutes would be a good live stream. It is 1:20 my East Coast time, and I've got a busy day tomorrow, so I will be going to bed right after that. But ask me any questions from the keynote, anything you want to hear. I think it was pretty cool. Jensen, in the beginning of the keynote, was talking about people who own, who have 4090s, who had no problem spending $1,500 on a GPU. He's like $10K on an entertainment system. I think Jensen was just like throwing the middle finger to everybody who complains about the prices of high-end graphics cards and high-end PC systems. I thought that was kind of funny. And I think he did some cool stuff with the Captain America shield. I thought that was pretty cool too. And, he did talk a lot about AI, and there was a lot of cool things he did speak about, but I don't really feel like talking much about those. I just want to stick to the topic of Blackwell. There's not too much more to say. I do think that, we could do a whole nother video on how AMD is foobarred. Basically foobarred, which, it makes more sense now why they basically didn't announce anything, but I still think they botched the launch. I think they could have just not announced the price and held off and let Nvidia make the first move and then announce the price later. But they got to do something because these prices are better than what we thought. I don't think anybody realistically thought that you would see the 5090 cost the same as the 4090. I think $2,000 is what people were comfortable with. I personally was more afraid of the 5080 price. I really thought we were going to see $1,300 to $1,400. I think Jensen really hit the head on the nail with the 5080 at $1,000. I think price to performance wise, I think it's pretty equal to the 3080 back when that was $800. I think it was $800, right? It was $800, $750, $800. I think. I don't know what I think about this 5070 Ti at $750. I don't know if it was good or bad. I think it's a viable option. But I think the 5070 at $550, Jensen shot a message to Intel and Nvidia. I think the 5060 Ti and the 5060 are going to be crap. And I think Intel's still going to win that. But it's up to AMD to do something because they've got Intel and AMD. So AMD's got to do something because they've got Intel on the low end with the B580 chomping at their heels, and then they've got the 5070 at the high end. So they're like trapped between the $280 price range and the $549 range. So like they have to be somewhere in that range or lower than the B580, frankly. So I don't know what AMD is going to do, right? You got to get market share back somehow, right? Right? I mean, they've got to get it back. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I really, really think they need to figure something out because they're in a load of trouble. So, thank you very much, Gordon, for the super chat. I really appreciate it, and thank you so far for the super chats. Like I said, I'm going to go for another probably like 5-10 minutes max. So let me know what you want to talk about. We can talk about mining. We can talk about gaming. There's going to be a lot of stuff tomorrow. that I would think that there will be some hands-on with the 5090, 5080, 5070, 5070 Ti, so I'll be sharing those as I see them. I would think that most of the AIBs were going to have 3-slot cards, but that 2-slot Founders card, I didn't think they'd be able to pull it off, because the rumor was true that they really were going back to 2-slot, and it looks like they did. And something that I think is interesting, and I don't know if you can see it, but next to the GeForce RTX, you see the indented slot for the high-powered high-powered cable, which is good. It'll make it fit in cases easier, and hopefully it'll make it where it's less likely to break. Death Valley Mining says AMD's probably better putting their attention solely into CPUs and letting Nvidia run the GPU game they lost. It's over. That is not a good way to think. We need AMD to do something. We really do. We need AMD to push hard, and they need to really give Nvidia a run for their money. They do, because if they don't, then you're going to keep seeing Nvidia lower the performance improvements from generation to generation, because if their only competition is themselves, then you're not going to ever see the leaps that we saw from the 3090 to the 4090, because they're not going to have to do it. You know, we had the 7900 XTX that pushed the 4090, and the only thing that's pushing the 5090 right now is the 4090, and that's not good. For people already on 40 series, will get frame gen upgrade as a new software update. Amir Messi asks, I think they will. I really think that they will get it in a future software update. Probably when the 50 series releases would be my guess, that they'll roll it all out at the same time. And it'll be fun to test the frame gen update on games like Cyberpunk and Indiana Jones. So I think that'll be really nice. And it's nice that, you know, if you bought like a 4080 or 4080 Super or 4070 Ti Super, it's good to know that you probably won't be left in the dust, and you'll still be able to play high-end games. So I think it's good on Nvidia that they did that. I'm really curious to see the improvements that we'll see on the 30 series and the let me see if I can find the 30 series and the 20 series with the new software enhancements that'll come out. I think it was let me look. Where is it? It was right here. They were talking about, let me show you in the slide. Give me a second. Window. They were talking about that you'll get DLAA beta on the 20 series and the 30 series, which isn't bad. And you'll get a little bit of a better DLSS on the 20 and 30 series. So it'll be interesting to see what the enhanced DLSS can do on a card like the 2080 Ti, which still has the VRAM. So that'll be kind of cool. It's nice that they're giving older cards some good improvements. I'm just curious what else they show here. No, nothing really interesting down here. So yeah, look for hands-on tomorrow. I'm hoping I'll get to hold and play with some of these GPUs tomorrow, which will be nice and exciting. I'm really curious to see if AMD is going to have any of these out, or if I don't think there's any AIBs besides ASRock here, and I wasn't able to get a meeting with them, so I don't know if they'll have any of their. Well, Asus, I guess Asus maybe will have an RDNA 4 GPU at their booth. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. I'm curious. Death Valley Mining is saying, not saying I like it, but it seems where it's at. Listen, all AMD has to go off of right now is their price. If they get the price wrong, they're dead. That's it. Which is probably why they were quiet. They didn't want to. They'll probably do something later on, but they shouldn't have given us a half-botched release like that. They should have just went ahead and announced RDNA 4, taken a little bit of the spotlight, and not released a price. Because they didn't give you a price for anything else. In the press kit, we didn't get a price for the 9950X 3D. We didn't get a price for any of that. So, I don't know. I think they botched it. I think you're going to look back at this day, and it's going to be like, you have, on the one side, you have AMD who didn't even announce their own GPUs properly. Literally, the media announced the RDNA 4 line for them. And then on the other hand, you have Jensen with the slide that, shook the world. I mean, I don't know how you I don't know how you compare it to you compare the two. I mean, this slide, whether you agree with it or not, crazy. All right, guys, we hit 40 minutes. I think that's good enough. I am beat. I am tired. I'm starting to lose steam, and I don't want to reduce the quality of the stream because I've already botched names, which kind of goes to say that it's kind of wild that the 20 series, the 30 series, the 40 series, and the 50 series are still all relevant. Wild time to be alive for GPUs. I really appreciate you guys for watching. If you're tuning in at this at a later date, thank you for checking it out as well. I don't think I'll be live streaming much for the rest of the event, if we're being honest. You'll see some content coming out from me, but I think this is it for the live streams. I'll have a lot of cool coverage from MSI, from Gigabyte, from Asus, from AMD, Cooler Master. Cooler Master has a stone-plated case. A stone-plated case. I've never seen a stone-plated PC case before, and that was not on my CES bucket list. So there'll be a lot of cool content coming out. If I can sneak another live stream in, I will. But probably this is it. This was kind of the live streaming day. All right, guys. So stay tuned for a lot of great content. I'll have a lot of shorts and a lot of other videos. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Share it with your friends. And thank you for interacting, guys. I really, really appreciate you hanging out with me. I couldn't do it without you.